Our next speaker is the only sitting CEO of a real estate brokerage company that actually started off as a real estate agent. Can you imagine that? And he wasn't just any real estate agent. He was the #1 real estate agent in all of Keller Williams' entire franchise, doing 600 units, which at the time was ridiculous. He co-founded a company called Remind. How many people have used Remind? And he sold that company to MLS Systems for $55 million. Clap that up. That's what I'm talking about. And now he finds himself as the CEO of the largest independent brokerage on the planet. So let's give a warm elite builder welcome to the CEO of EXP, Mr. Leo Pareja.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
When it's just me and him, I always walk away with perspective and context.
My favorite word in the English language. 2025 was a transformational year in real estate that we will look back in the rearview mirror. I've been in real estate for a long time. One of the things about REO is people said 2008. Like 2008 wasn't the bottom. 2008 was when the party ended. Do people remember the exact bottom? It depends on the part of the country you're in, but it was either 2010, 11, or 12, right? Where you could actually on a chart see that. I will tell you right now that 2025, 5 years from now, will be like, oh, that's when everything changed. It doesn't feel like that. And I will tell you in 2026, people are going to go, you guys were exaggerating. If you study history, which is probably the best teacher we can look at, you can see pattern recognition. So if you guys follow Tony Robbins, like one of the skills of an entrepreneur is to start recognizing patterns. And that's the one part about life that's non-negotiable. Like I can read all the books I want. I can tell my son not to do something. He still has to go do it, to experience it, to learn. And so if you look at American history, business sectors can be completely fragmented for hundreds of years, 50 years, 100 years, and then they're not. The Gilded Age, late 1800s, Industrial Revolution, we had at one point like 118 railroads. When westward expansion blew up and people started pulling minerals out of the ground, and then there was 4. Same with oil companies, same with airlines. Who's old enough to remember we used to have like 20 airlines in this country? And now, what do we got? American, United, and Delta. How many healthcare companies do we have? And by the way, what I'm saying isn't good or bad, it just is. And that's when industries mature. And so, what happened in 2025? A little private equity company called Stone Point bought Keller Williams.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Stone Point has like $20 billion under assets under management. They bought a little company called CoreLogic as well for $8 billion. So one company that owns CoreLogic also owns Keller Williams. And oh, by the way, they also own Lone Wolf. Did you guys know that? So that all happened in Q1 of 2025. Like I shared that story. That was my message at Build Cabo.
Yeah.
Because it just happened like 10 days before. And then 2025 said, hold my beer. Rocket bought Redfin. That was the best trade of 2025. Because CoStar bought Homes and spent $1 billion on ad spend last year. Did you guys know that? Do you know what the revenue off that was? $70 million. So when Rocket turned around and bought Redfin for $1.7 billion, I was like, that was the best pickup I've ever seen. And then there was a rumor in about April, May, that Compass was buying Berkshire. And it was like the worst kept secret, like everyone was telling me for about a week. And it didn't happen. And then September 22nd, it was the best kept secret because no one knew it happened. Compass announced they were acquiring Anywhere. So first of all, does everybody know what Anywhere was or is, right? It's a holding company. If you've ever heard of a company called Unilever, like they're the holding company of all consumer products. They own Ben & Jerry's, Dove, all kinds of stuff. There was one of those in real estate. It started as Sundant in the 90s and it became Realogy and then it got rebranded to Anywhere. But that single company owned 6 brands. Corcoran, Sotheby's, ERA, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Better Homes and Garden. So Compass announced on September 22nd that they were buying that company. And that closed about a week ago. Now that's referred to as Compass International. So first of all, like I want to say this loudly, like huge congrats to Robert Refkin. Like that is a feat of capitalism that's impressive. And I don't care who you are. Like to pull that off is incredible. But I got a call from CNN yesterday and they wanted my opinion. And I think they were expecting me to have a different thought process. But what I said is like the work starts now. Now you're going to integrate all that. And so one of the things that I would advise all of you to do, if you really want to know what any of us really think, listen to our earnings calls, which I'll give credit to this man because he actually does. And so anytime there's change, there's opportunity. So first of all, just comprehend what just happened. One company now owns 9 brands. So the 6 they had, plus Compass, Christie's, and App Properties. So globally, that puts them at 340,000 agents in 120 countries. So let's separate out international because that's a different business. But in the US, that puts them at 210,000 agents. And that breaks down into what's a franchise and what's a company-owned store. So we at eXp are a company-owned business, meaning that there's no franchises. I refer to us as franchise light because Aaron didn't have to sign a 10-year contract with me, and I share the revenue with him. And
Thank you.
And if I don't continue to deliver on the value proposition, he can take his toys and leave. Right? In a franchise system, if there's 3, 5, 6, 7 years left, that's not the situation. So Compass International Holdings has about 52,000 agents in what is formerly known as NRT, right? That is the holding company of the company-owned stores at Anywhere. And that's primarily your Coldwell bankers. So like if you can visualize it in your town, if you want to know if it's an NRT store or now Compass-owned company stores, or it's a franchise, just look at the name and does it say Coldwell Banker or like Coldwell Banker, Novello and Associates? You can visualize that. And so if it's got a comma anything, it's a franchise. And if it just says Coldwell Banker with no comma anything, it's a company-owned store. In order to pull it off, and why I'm giving the flowers is because they had $2.6 billion worth of debt on Anywhere. And so Compass is assuming that and adding more to pay off the 750. And so now they have to service like $3 billion worth of debt. And on the presentation on Wall Street, which is public, so like you can look this up, the plan is to combine the two companies, create synergies, which is what happens during M&A, but they're planning on removing $300 million of expenses of the combined company, which is what you do when you acquire a business, right? You don't need 2 legal teams, 2 marketing teams, 2 this, 2 that. Anytime there's change, we as a species don't really like it. You raise your hands when you guys use Remind. If I moved a button by half an inch, you people would text me. It was insane. I was like, how the hell did you know that? I didn't know we moved the button to the left. What I know will happen, and it's already happening, I'm getting phone calls, because again, like no shade in the sense of like, if you competed with someone across town your whole career and all of a sudden they say you have to be first cousins, you're like, maybe I'm open to a different opportunity. So there is going to be this interesting moment where anytime we change anything, and I don't care which jersey I'm wearing or what I'm doing, it creates an opportunity for a conversation. And there are people who just don't want to be part of such a big company versus I want to be at a smaller company. I want to feel different. And when there's that level of change, it really invites questions, right? So the reporter wanted me to comment on the 3-phase marketing approach and all that. And I said, look, that's not my place to comment because we don't know what's going to happen. Let's see what happens. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the agents who are excited, but it does create opportunities. I've already had franchisees call me and say, hey, in 6 months, I want to have a conversation because there's an opportunity. So for you guys that do attraction, I would tell you that I think more is going to change in the next 24 months that changed in the last 10 years. And if you look at history, I think there's going to be 3 to 5 companies of scale in 5 years that are 50, 60% of the real estate companies in America.
Yeah. So to really summarize, right? Every mature industry goes through a lot of consolidation, right? And what you're telling us is that we're actually witnessing and watching that live.
For size and scale, we're a clear number 2, right? And so,
and talk a little bit about that. Like, how are we a clear number 2, size and scale?
Yeah. So most people don't comprehend that we are a single entity, right? Especially if you come, because I'll be on a stage and I'll say, hey, we're the biggest in the world. And people are like, Keller Williams is. Keller Williams does have the most agents in a single brand, but they're a franchise system. So if you've seen any franchise, there's independently owned and operated right after it. Mm-hmm. In Keller Williams, where I grew up in Gary's house, Smokey Garrett's the number 1 franchisee at Keller Williams. He's got 4,000 agents across 5 states. Let's go KW Go. But that's the biggest as a one company brand. So that's a very clear distinction. Like during the broker to broker compensation conversation 2 summers ago, I decided we were going to do things differently and I gave forms. Keller, Remax, Colwell couldn't do that because they're not the actual broker.
When he first said that most brands have more in common with Subway, real estate brands, than they do EXP, I'm like, what did he just say? The franchise Subway, like the owner of Subway. Do they make money selling sandwiches? No. Well, how do they make money? A franchise fee. And they also, which is rev share, it's top line revenue. And they force you to use what? Their cups, their straws, their tuna fish, all their stuff. Yes? Okay. Well, I need you guys to understand what traditional brands, what we've worked for and grown up in, they have more in common with Subway than they do EXP. Because what they do is they sell a franchise to somebody who's independently owned and operated, right? Bunch of money up front, 200, whatever it is, $300,000. And then what they do is they monetize the relationship. How do they monetize the relationship with all the agents? Tech fee, title, mortgage, escrow. Yeah, twist your arm to use their stuff. Does that make sense?
2025 going into 2026. By the way, no one thought the transaction would close until like the summer. So whatever everyone's plans were, they just got accelerated. What can you control? Because if one company has 25% market share nationally, and in some markets it's 50 or 60%, when I'm talking to agents in 2026, there are 2 things and 2 things only that you need to focus on. Let's do an experiment. Everyone pull out your phones right now. Go to settings and check screen time. And you don't have to show it to your neighbor, so I won't make you feel bad about yourself. What are the top 3 apps, messages I like? That's good.
That's good. It means you're doing something.
Instagram, Facebook, ChatGPT, that's phenomenal. Someone's in denial. Hit his screen time, turn it off. What you will find is actually a perfect sample of where attention lives in 2026. The amount of times I'm sitting with one of you guys one-on-one, they go, hey, I want to try this mailer. What do you think? I answer it the exact same way. Would that work on you? Would that work on you? I think we grossly underestimate our intelligence as a sophisticated consumer. In the 1950s, if we were spending ad dollars, we would be arguing on spending some money on television. Like, this thing is untested. It's probably a fad. Not every American is ever going to buy one of these things. Like, radio works. Just double down on radio. I almost got into an argument. Some talking head on LinkedIn the other day decided to try to drag me and not use my name.
Nice.
And pick on one of my posts.
He didn't realize he picked on the wrong person.
Well, I've also learned, as I get wiser in this role, is when I respond publicly, it turns into a whole thing and I end up on Inman, and I wrote it and then I put it away because my mama said. But the point he made is it was a video between me and one of our agents, and I was talking about social media not being social media and just being modern marketing. And he went on a whole paragraph, multi-paragraph on how I was full of shit and that it's about CPM and paid advertising. And I like his business partner, so I called his business partner. I'm like, yo, I'm about to knock your boy out on social media, but I like you, so I'm not going to. But he's wrong. More importantly, it's not that my ego's hurt. He's just wrong.
Yep.
And so the guy called me, apologized, took it down, and we had a really healthy conversation because the video I posted on LinkedIn had like 26 likes and 2 comments. And it was a video on how much reach social media has. And I said, what you don't comprehend is that was not the audience for that video. That was a long form podcast that we clipped. And on Instagram, it's gotten 356,000 views with 10,000 interactions.
Yeah.
But we then take that piece of content and put it on 6 platforms, right? So today, I do have a full-time job that's kind of demanding. I'm posting 10 pieces of content, 10 to 12, on 6 platforms every single day.
I've watched you realize it. About a year and 8 months ago, you're like, oh.
Well, funny story. You guys know Kyle Whistle? So Kyle calls me about 2 years ago, and he goes, hey, there's this guy I know who's got glasses. He's brown. He's had 2 successful exits, super charismatic. And I was like, I know Sharon. He's wearing me out. I know. No, dickhead, I'm talking about you. Just get loud. And so I spent a lot of, and by the way, I text Sharon, and he is one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he was super kind and spent time explaining stuff to me. And the aha I had was, I will never beat Sharon at being Sharon, but I'll smoke him at being Leo. Play the hand you're dealt. Like, if you've never heard my whole origin story, I sold 11 homes my sophomore year of college during the summer to my friends' parents for housing for the following year. And I made $60,000. I didn't have a sphere of influence. I looked about 12, right? But I had just bought a house. My dad co-signed me FHA. And so I had one transaction. I run script that was authentic to me. And then I turned around and did it 11 times in 3 months. So with social, first of all, understand that it's modern marketing.
Yeah, so with the change that's happening, why are you seeing that that's so important to be known as the trusted hyper-local expert?
Yes,
We
so
talked about that yesterday.
First of all, it's understanding where the attention is. Follow Gary Vee, the most directionally accurate person I've witnessed. And I have a photo of me and Gary from 2014 when he did Jab, Jab, Right Cross. And I was in a room smaller than this, and he was the keynote, and there was like maybe 50 of us in the room. And he's called most things right. And so we are going through a really interesting moment because there's this separation in social that I'm watching. And I love gut reactions because, again, we over index on trying to ask Esper for advice versus listening to this. So watch this. Raise your hand if you feel it in your gut when you're scrolling Facebook and LinkedIn right now, and one of your dumbass friends from high school that couldn't string a sentence together is now writing paragraphs this long. You read 3 words and you know it's AI. When Zora dropped, I enjoyed the videos for like a day, and now when I see the watermark, I go like this. I think there's this unwritten rule as human beings that we value your time, right? Like, I fundamentally start almost every conversation with, I value time above everything. So I want to make sure that when we're done with this conversation, you got value out of it. So can I put you in the driver's seat and you ask me questions and I can answer them for you? Because too many of us just kind of and throw up on people. How excited do you get when you still get a handwritten note in 2026, right? Because there's this agreement. You're like, oh my God, you spent time and pulled out a piece of paper and then put a stamp on it and walked it to the mailbox versus text me. Right? And so what we're witnessing is the digital commoditization of all forms of communication. So in writing at scale, but it's happening with audio and video next. How many of you follow me on social? Okay, the rest of you, do it. But how many of you can tell when it's me versus AI Leo?
My new podcast where we dive deep into what it really takes to lead, grow, and win in today's world. I'm Leo Pareja. I've built companies, led tens of thousands of agents as CEO of eXp Realty, and learned that the difference between good and great isn't what you know, it's how you think, how you adapt, and how you inspire others to level up with you. This isn't about feel-good motivation. We're talking real strategies for real leaders. How do you scale without losing your soul? How do you lead through chaos? What separates entrepreneurs who survive from those who thrive?
What part of that was AI? My voice. If you haven't played with 11 Labs, go play with 11 Labs. The script. There is a custom GPT that the marketing team has called GPT Leo that we've uploaded every single piece of content that exists on me on the internet. There is a lot of it. And literally the description is how to create inspiring motivational content with Leo's authoritative voice. And the marketing team says it normally shrinks it and makes it more aggressive. It's like, the first time I heard that video, I was like, holy shit, that sounds just like me. I would use that phraseology. And so this is what's going to happen, is we're going to get an explosion of content, like 10, 100x. We just had the holidays. How many of you received an email from someone you interacted with that sent you a bullshit ass happy holidays, generic ass photo, versus you got a like nice like $4 investment in a family photo with like someone, like you probably got like 10 of those versus 100 of those junk emails. I believe we're in this amazing, beautiful moment where being a human being is going to be an amazing premium. A bunch of you follow me. Is this different that I'm physically here with you versus you watching me? And now you're second guessing if it's even me or it's my AI.
Is that a hologram? Like, I don't know, dude. Is that really him? Where's the check mark? You know what I'm saying?
And so it is going to, so all of our bullshit meters are going up. Some of you are as old as me, right? Do you remember fist fighting your siblings to pick up the phone when the phone rang in the kitchen with the long cord? Right? Like now if someone calls you like, ew, text me. I don't know you. This is so personal. Like
one of the things that you're circling around, I heard Russell Brunson say something. He said in the future, information actually won't be that valuable. What will be valuable is community, because community is where trust is fostered. So what Leo's saying is with all of these changes that are happening, you need to be purposeful and intentional about cultivating trust. Because we live in a world now where we don't trust anything. You don't trust the government. You don't trust financial institutions. You don't even trust doctors. You get your health advice from influencers who've never gone to medical school, which is crazy.
When it gets cluttered, I actually see that as an opportunity. What I did better than most as an agent is I was really systematic and I called all my people and I had conversations and I fostered deep relationships and I sold them a lot of houses, right? Now that there's an easy button, it's going to become spam. And so what I would first of all encourage you is to get out of your own head and realize that this form of marketing is pretty cool. Like if you follow me and you don't like my content, you were definitely not going to like me in person because I'm even more unchanged version of myself in person.
You know, it's funny. I was telling somebody yesterday, I'm like, you know what my hardest flex is? They're like, what? I'm like, I'm exactly how I am on media.
Probably I cuss way more in person because I'm the CEO of a public company. So I try not to do it on camera. But that's the beauty of it. 2 years ago when I was named CEO, I did not have a Facebook account. Glenn texts me, goes, I can't tag you in the post. And I had like 1,500 people on Instagram. Do you all know what your views are for last month on each social platform? Your dashboards? That's the homework. If you don't have a professional account, upgrade it. They don't charge you anything. I think my Instagram, I looked at it yesterday with Glenn. I have 729,000 views with 10,000 interactions in the last 30 days. Of a 30-minute conversation, I'd have to spend 10 minutes creating rapport and convincing you that I'm competent, which is what you guys have to do at appointments, right?
That's right.
Versus today, I'm like, hey, do you need it? No, I've consumed a bunch of your stuff.
Correct.
I've heard the stories. I've heard you in your car and the Honda and blah, blah, blah in college. Figure out what works for you. So back to the Sharon story. When I watched Sharon teach with a camera and a notepad, like I couldn't do that. No, because I feed off human beings. Like I'm a super high I. Like when we walked in, I was like, what are we talking about?
You really did. That's great.
Which, by the way, statistically speaking, this is the scariest human experience, like right after dying, is for me to go 30 minutes. Most people would be like, I get energy doing this and I have a lot of practice doing it. So literally it's like, give me a prompt and I'm off to the races.
And because we both do it frequently, we both were like, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll be fine.
This is an open invitation and maybe one of you will take me up on it, which is send me a Slack message and I will say yes to any podcast you have digitally. I'll come on any one of your podcasts. The rule is you have to give me the content back. So 2 reasons. It's funny because I've had people question me. It's like, dude, you did this podcast with an agent that does $5 million and I got 27 views. I'm like, those are my favorite podcasts. Because those 27 views are my humans. Right? I did one with Ryan Sarahan. It went viral. We had like 20,000 views. It's like, well, me and Ryan's entertaining, but like it probably didn't convert anyone either to Ryan or me. They just liked the dynamic of seeing the two of us on stage together. Versus if I do a podcast and 27 people watched it, they were already mine or they became mine. Does that make sense?
If somebody doesn't position themselves as a guide, a local trusted guide, with all of the kind of portal fighting, MLS fighting, all these disruption, what do you think the end result of that will be? Like, what's the lag measure?
I fundamentally believe the agent expertise isn't going anywhere. Last year, we actually increased. 91% of transactions in the United States had an agent attached to them.
Let's go.
It's gone up. And if, we millennials are part of the problem in the sense we've helicopter parent the next generation, I think they definitely want their handheld. At Remine, I had a couple engineers showed up with their mom to their job interview. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I draw the line right here, homie. How do you make big purchases? Like if you need a hairdresser, ladies, do you just Google and click the first result? First of all, you get a referral. That's the number one thing you do. But once you get the referral, what do? You check them out. You go make sure they have a digital footprint And by the way, I think some bad reviews is better than no reviews. Because if you have like a 4.1, if I see a restaurant with a 4.1, I'll still try it versus 0. I'll stay at a hotel with a 4.1 versus a brand new property with 0 reviews. Airbnb, think about that. I would spend the weekend thinking of how you make big transactional decisions as a consumer. Like, what's your process? Because you're a sophisticated consumer. And think about it at $50 versus $10,000. And make sure that consumers can validate you the same way. Who said ChatGPT was their number one? Look at where you're spending your time. So I liked Messages being the number one app. For some of you, it's Facebook and Instagram. And that's okay if you're creating content and sending DMs. How many of you in this room have gotten a random comment on one of your posts from me specifically on Facebook or Instagram? I was going to say, I could see at least 5 of you, right? That's actually me. That's not an EA. That's not someone in the Philippines. That's not a script I wrote. If I'm sitting at an airport where the plane hasn't taken off, I open up my phone and I scroll and I interact. We would need to find an excuse to contact somebody. Like Brian Buffini would send me a piece of paper that I would mail and say, hey, the stamps changed again. And I needed to find an excuse. You literally just open your goddamn phone. You're like, that's amazing. Congratulations on X. Like, that's fire. You look incredible. Blah, blah, blah. Fill in the blank that's authentic. And like, don't just do it. Like, go find every single human being you've put in a house in the last 10 years and make sure you're connected to them on the platform they like to be on. Because the problem in our industry is people forget that you're in real estate. They're like, oh.
Isn't that the worst? Yeah. Like you got shanked in the side. They're like, oh man, I sold my $1 million house. I forgot you're an agent. You're like, oh my gosh.
But whose fault was that? No one lies in bed at night wondering if you have enough to eat. And this is the kicker. It's not because they don't love you. It's because they're lying in bed at night worried about feeding their kids. For you that's following me on social, are you unaware of how active of a father I am? Right? If you follow me, you know I'm very involved in my kid's life. And there has to be a healthy ratio of competence of business to being a human being. Like all of us follow an agent that's just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold, blah, 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 blah. Like Mr. Sai over here is hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't have known that from hanging out with him one-on-one because he's very proper. He's dressed to the nines and he's a badass agent. But because I follow him on social, I'm like, this dude's a comedian. And I bet you his clients like him more because they've probably never experienced that version of John. Most of my clients only got negotiating Leo, who's a savage and probably scary. But they never interacted with father and husband Leo, right? And now people get to see that version of me, which doesn't show up to conferences. Because I'm like, okay, I got 45 minutes to make sure that they get value, and then I have to go do it again.
Let me ask you a question. Did you get value today? Let's go. So everybody stand up. Give this man a wonderful round of applause. Appreciate you.
The skills that we have actually transition perfectly for an acquisitions agent. To be able to qualify leads and having the different options is unbelievable.
If you do want to go creative, you can't overpay and then give him everything, right? 20% high interest rate. That's not a deal. Walk away.